Life can be a real adventure. Hot, fast,
Slow or sad.
maybe sometimes even filled with ups and downs.
But, according to psychiatrists, any part of life can be labeled a mental illness.
Really? Like what?
Let's say you're upset after a bad breakup. Well, that could be labeled depression,
What if you're nervous before speaking in public?
anxiety disorder,
Or being really talkative and super active?
manic.
That sounds a little crazy.
It does.
But how much does this really happen?
Let's go ask.
How many people do you know that have been diagnosed with a mental disorder?
Diagnosed with a mental, God, off the top of my head, maybe one person that I know who's been diagnosed with a mental disorder.
Probably just one.
So, yeah, maybe 2 or 3 people, maybe in the 3 or 4 range.
4 or 5, maybe 5.
6 people in the household.
6, 7.
10.
A dozen or so.
About 20.
How about 30?
Would definitely be in the hundreds for sure.
The total number of people that I know in my lifetime has been diagnosed with a mental disorder probably fall around the range of 100 to 150, and I'm 23 years old.
Wow. But where are these disorders all coming from?
From Psychiatry's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's 943 pages long and covers everything from depression and anxiety to stuttering, cigarette addiction, fear of spiders, nightmares, problems with math, and even disorder of infancy. All reinterpreted and many falsely labeled as a brain disease.
But people do have serious problems in life.
Absolutely. But psychiatrists reduce them down to something wrong with your brain.
So let me get this straight. Psychiatrists have a book of life problems reinterpreted as mental disorders?
That's right.
Wow. Then it must be backed up by a lot of science.
You'd think so, but it isn't. Psychiatrists at one of their recent conventions admitted to it. Listen to this.
DSM is made up by committees of men who have political opinion, and women too, who have biases and political opinions. And so there isn't nearly as much science in DSM as there ought to be.
Like in the previous one, people had a meeting in the bathroom and they decided that something should be in there, and then they would go and propose it to the whole committee.
You have this kind of lumping together of several observations, and when you get enough of them in one tent, you got a diagnosis.
DSM system is not the real system of the diagnosis.
A lot of the disorders that are in there haven't necessarily been rigorously validated.
It's just the best tool that we have available, but it is not perfect.
It's so useless that if you give me a patient and the DSM, I'll make at least 20 diagnoses on the same patient.
You have to take it with a grain of salt anyway.
It's actually getting more and more complicated.
We're left with diagnosing things on the basis of checklists and questionnaires, which leaves us sort of out of, as you said, the rest of medicine because we don't have a biological test.
Amazing.
The lack of science in the DSM is actually an open secret. Here's what some professionals have to say about it.
The DSM is a sham. It's been described as a house of cards. Why? Because the diagnoses are theoretical. They're not based on scientific measurements.
It's sort of a shaky level built on another shaky level, built on another shaky level.
It is flimsy and that it is easily collapsible under the scrutiny of critical thinking.
If you just pull one little fragment of the reasoning aside and question it thoroughly, you'll find it doesn't stand up, and then that means that the whole organism collapses because you've got some wrong premises in there somewhere. In fact, they're all over the place.
It is indeed a house of cards because it's predicated on not a solid structure. It is built to create an apparently legitimate edifice, which results in a diagnosis. But any serious inquiry will show it to be illegitimate.